Sammy Hagar is hard rock's favorite fun-loving, beach bum uncle without a care in the world, unless you count the time he woke up to find extradimensional aliens in his bedroom. Love Walks In was one of the first songs Van Halen recorded with Hagar as their new lead singer, and the hit ballad had listeners reminiscing about all the feelings that come with new love. But everyone's really missing the point, because Love Walks In is about aliens. Hagar explained that around 3 a.m. one night, he woke up in an excruciatingly bright room and to the sight of aliens experimenting on him. Explaining to Guitar Magazine, "They downloaded everything that was in my head, and I caught them doing it. But this was all telepathy. There were no words being spoken." Unable to move his body, the aliens then disappeared, leaving Hagar trembling and queasy in a suddenly darkened room. But don't worry, they came back for more, as Hagar revealed. There have been 3 or 4 other contacts with the same group of people. I don't know who the they are, but I've narrowed them down to a people called the Nine, who are called that because they're from the 9th dimension.
Cabo!
Does Sammy Hagar like tequila? Well, if you consider Van Halen's 1988 song Cabo Wabo, or Hagar's 1999 solo hit Mas Tequila, or Hagar's long history in the tequila business, we'd say there's a lot of evidence pointing to yes. Plus, unlike most people, there's a strong case that tequila likes him back. At the very least, it's made him insanely rich. In 1990, Hagar opened the first Cabo Wabo cantina in the burgeoning resort area of Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, and it developed into a major party destination called Sammy Hagar's Cabo Wabo Beach Club. By 1996, Hagar couldn't find a tequila he liked enough to stock, and so he started a distillery, sourcing the blue agave he needed from a family-owned farm. Hagar allowed for distribution of Cabo Wabo tequila to the general public in 1999, and in less than a decade, it had become one of the best-selling tequilas in the United States. In 2007, Hagar sold 80% of his stake in Cabo Wabo tequila to global alcohol distributor Grupo Campari for $80 million, staying on as a consultant until 2010, when he sold his remaining shares for another $11 million. Hagar took that money and invested it straight back into booze, developing drinks that include Sammy's Beach Bar Rum and Santo Spirits.
Here, you want to smell that? Here, have a smell of that. I bet you'd like a drink of that, wouldn't you?
Sammy Hagar has made his living on the big stage and selling booze, but he spent a little time working on the small screen as well. In 1998, he turned in a cameo as a bartender on an episode of the CBS crime drama Nash Bridges, set in his home state of California. 12 years later, Hagar returned to television in animated form for an installment of the Adult Swim series Aqua Teen Hunger Force. The episode's plot revolves around an evil alien plant who ends up eating and cloning Chickenfoot bassist Michael Anthony, much to the chagrin of Hagar.
Hey, Joe, Smoke, who is this guy?
Chill out, Sam. He's a plant.
Oh, this is awesome.
Hey, what's that?
Hagar's favorite cameo, however, may have come in 2014 when he voiced himself on The Simpsons, in an episode where Homer Simpson starts a dad band. Talking to Rolling Stone about the experience, Hagar said, "The Simpsons universe has had some of the greatest rock stars of all time. Just to be one of those guys, I'm happy with that. You could just end it right there."
I went to Rockstar Heaven, and there was this great back patio with this sweet fire pit.
Sammy Hagar, aka the Red Rocker. It's one of rock's great nicknames and checks all the boxes one looks for in a moniker, but the story behind the legendary nickname is actually, well, pretty boring. In 1977, Hagar released a solo album with a cover that depicted him dressed in a red suit, getting out of a red car that was parked on a city block where all the buildings and passerbys were decked out in red as well. Just in case you weren't able to pick up on the subtle message, the first song on that LP was titled appropriately, Red. Around the time when the record hit stores, Hagar and his band played a radio-sponsored show in Seattle, and as he later recalled to Odyssey Music, the day after the Seattle concert, the newspaper said, "'Cause I was dressed in red, it was for my Red album," and the newspaper said Sammy Hagar, the Red Rocker, performed. The next day, a fan found him at his hotel and asked him to give an autograph as both Sammy Hagar and the Red Rocker, and the two have been linked ever since. When Hagar met Eddie Van Halen at Summerfest in 1978, it was simply a pleasant introduction full of mutual respect. As Hagar told Ultimate Classic Rock, "I thought he was just one of the nicest, sweetest, humblest rock stars on the planet. Shaking my hand, oh Sammy man, I'm a big fan, you know, Montrose." What neither of them knew at the time, however, was that the meeting between future rock legends was doubling as a job interview. Fast forward 7 years, and Van Halen the band was at a crossroads. They had just released their most successful album, 1984, but behind-the-scene tensions were so bad during that time that lead singer David Lee Roth left the group. When he heard about the job opening, Hagar predicted to his wife at the time that he'd be hearing from his old pal Eddie, but he didn't foresee how Eddie Van Halen talking to a mechanic named Claudio would be the key to the legendary rock pairing.
And he sees my car, and Claudio says, "That's Sammy Hagar's car. You should call him." He said, "You have his number?" He said, "Yeah." And he sat down the phone right in Claudio's shop.
Hagar agreed to attend a jam session the next day, and then he was in the band. Another day, another lead singer switched up for Van Halen. While recording the 1995 album Balance, Hagar and Eddie Van Halen disagreed on creative matters, and the tensions grew during a frustrating concert tour beset by injuries.
We had the greatest time for 9 years. You know, the last year in that band got so ugly, but it was because of a new manager came in and manipulated.
When the tour ended, Hagar wanted a break and to spend time with his newborn baby, but Eddie and Alex Van Halen wanted to immediately record music again, either a full-length album or a handful of new tunes for a greatest hits album in the works. What happened next depends on the storyteller. In June 1996, Eddie asked Hagar to rewrite a lyric in one of those new songs. As Hagar recalled to the Los Angeles Times, "And I didn't want to, but after I left, he drove to David Lee Roth's house, and man, that's worse than sleeping with the enemy." With the old lead singer back in the band for a while, Hagar was fired for being difficult to deal with. And Hagar claimed that Van Halen put a bow on the ordeal by saying, "You're a solo artist in this band, so you might as well really be a solo artist." If you had happened to ask Eddie about the interaction, however, he would have claimed that Hagar gave himself the boot, telling Guitar World, "I said, Sam, if you want to make another record or do another tour, you've got to be a team player." He finally said, "Yeah, God, I'm f***ing frustrated. I want to go back to being a solo artist." In 2009, Aerosmith was going through a bit of a rough patch. Tour dates were canceled after singer Steven Tyler broke a shoulder in a stage fall, and then he publicly announced that he planned to focus on his solo work instead of the band. This apparently miffed guitarist Joe Perry enough for him to announce on Twitter that Aerosmith was in the market to work with a new singer. Seeing as how he'd already replaced one famous lead singer, Perry pursued Hagar for the gig, who seriously considered it before ultimately declining. As he recalled to Ultimate Classic Rock, "I think if I would have done both those things, I would have been the guy that replaced the guy. You know, always the guy replacing the guy. And that's a strange legacy for a guy like me." In 1974, Sammy Hagar decided it was a good time to launch his solo career, mostly because he'd just been fired from his band Montrose. After his ousting, he turned to Ted Templeman, a producer at Warner Brothers who had recorded both of Hagar's Montrose albums. While Templeman declined to add him to his label's roster, he gave Hagar the seed money to record a demo. Hagar took the money and put together a 5-song tape, and San Francisco freeform radio station KSAN played it in its entirety. It reached the ears of John Carter, an artist and rep with Capitol Records, who called and offered Hagar a contract. Hagar's first 5 albums sold modestly, but none generated anything close to a hit single. Even though he was filling arenas, Capitol Records still decided to drop him in 1980. He finally broke through into the commercial mainstream in 1982 when, after he signed with Geffen, I'll Fall in Love Again hit number 2 on the rock chart and just barely missed the pop top 40.
I've learned one thing, and that's it. You just got to keep your nose to the grindstone and just keep going forward.
It sure seems that when Hagar chooses people to perform with, he goes with the best of the best. In 1983, he put together HSAS, with each initial of the name referring to a member of the supergroup that released just one album: guitarist Neil Schon of Journey, Foghat bassist Kenny Aronson, and Santana drummer Michael Shreve. After his Van Halen exit in 1997, Hagar put together a solo backing band that included his old drummer David Lauser, Busboys guitarist Vic Johnson, and Tommy Two-Tone bassist Mona Nader. Known variously as the Wabaritas and the Wabos, that supergroup begat another in the 2000s, Los Tres Cusanos, with Hagar, Lauser, and Van Halen's Michael Anthony. Around that time, Hagar also fronted Planet Us, playing with Schon, Anthony, solo guitar whiz Joe Satriani, and drummer Dean Castronovo of Bad English. When that project ran its course, Hagar, Anthony, and Satriani joined Red Hot Chili Peppers drummer Chad Smith for Chickenfoot. Active since the 2010s, Hagar's newest supergroup is called Sammy Hagar and the Circle, and it once more put him in a band with Johnson and Anthony alongside veteran hard rock drummer Jason Bonham. The guy sure does get around. During Hagar's time with Montrose, the group's breakout single that propelled them onto the Billboard album chart was Bad Motor Scooter, and it was also the song that got him the job with the band. The hit single was the result of Hagar's first ever songwriting attempt, and when he played it and some others for Ronnie Montrose himself, he was invited to front the band. As Hagar summed it up to Rolling Stone, "I went from 0 to 100. But performing his own songs didn't always lead to instant success for Hagar. Sometimes his lyrics apparently needed to come out of someone else's mouth. In 1980, his self-written "I've Done Everything for You" bombed in the US and in the UK, but a year later, teen idol Rick Springfield covered it and took it to number 8 on the pop chart, landing Hagar some substantial royalty checks. In October 2024, Hagar turned 77, an age when most of us would rather be kicking back on a beach than crisscrossing the country for gigs. And Hagar sounds like he's coming around to that line of thinking as well. After finishing a 33-show tour in the summer of 2024, the Red Rocker indicated that he might be done road tripping, telling the Miami Herald in January 2025, "I don't think I want to go on tour anymore. I hate to say that because I don't want to piss my fans off. I'll go out and do a one-off show and do things like that." In 2025, he started his first regular, standing gig at Caspian's Cocktails and Caviar in Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, which will allow him to rock without the hassle of traveling. As Hagar explained, "At my age, it hurts my shoulders to do all this, and I have to perform. I'm a performer at the end of the day."